Hey everybody, today's video is all about the Beatles' White Album and specifically the stereo mix versus the mono mix. Now, the Beatles' White Album was released in 1968 and it's the very last Beatles album that had a dedicated mono mix. After the White Album, you had the albums Yellow Submarine, Let It Be, and Abbey Road, and those were all just given stereo mixes. Now, of course, I'm sure some of you are saying, well, wait, aren't there mono pressings of Yellow Submarine? And the answer is yes. There are some mono pressings of Yellow Submarine, but those are actually just fold-down mixes from the stereo master. So the last dedicated mono mix for a Beatles album was the White Album. If you saw one of my previous videos, I talked about Sgt. Pepper, and I talked about how I preferred the mono mix of Sgt. Pepper over the stereo mix. Well, in this video, it's the exact opposite. I actually prefer the stereo mix of the White Album over the mono mix. And I should mention that I'm not including at all the Giles Martin remix that came out, I believe it was in 2018, for the White Album, the Super Deluxe editions and all that kind of stuff. I'm not even including that. To me, all those remixes done by Giles Martin, those are their own thing. Those are outside of the realm that I'm discussing right now. I'm just talking about the 1968 stereo mix and the 1968 mono mix. Now, let me show you the exact pressings I'm holding in my hands right now, or have leaning against me. This is a German White Album, stereo German White Album, and this happens to be my favorite pressing of the White Album at the moment. And it is, I will show you what this one looks like. It has top loaders, which is pretty cool. Comes in the original black inner sleeve, and it is from the German label like this. And if you want to know what the matrix is on this one, let's see, what is it? It's got manufactured in Germany, pressed in the dead wax, and it's a -1 is this particular record right here, the first side. But anyway, this German pressing is my favorite stereo pressing of the White Album, and I'm sure if you've watched my channel, you've heard me rave about these German pressings before, especially the White Album. It has just a really, really nice, extra wide stereo image, which I really like a lot, and just so much definition in the stereo mix. So definitely one to pick up. And the mono pressing I'm holding, this happens to be the 2014 mono remaster from the mono box set. And this mono pressing I think sounds fantastic as far as the mono mix goes. And it's my current go-to as far as my White Album mono mixes. I do have an original UK mono mix of the White Album, but it's in not the best shape. It's a bit noisy, so my go-to is 2014 mono remaster, just because it's really clean and really, really nice. And by the way, they sound very, very similar, I will say. So let's talk about why I like the stereo mix. First off, I think it's a really, really well done mix. Everything is positioned correctly. It's not like the earlier Beatles stereo albums, like With the Beatles or Help or Hard Day's Night or whatever, those original mixes, where some stuff is just crazy pan to one side and some stuff's pan to another side. The White Album, it's a pretty good mix and a pretty good balance with the stereo image. With the White Album, they had 8-track machines and 4-track machines. And they were able to create a better balance as far as the stereo mix goes. So right off the bat, it's a different ballgame altogether when it comes to stereo with the White Album compared to the other Beatles albums. I'll also say that the stereo mix for me, it has a lot of depth to it, and that's very, very important because there are sometimes like I was mentioning previously, some of the earlier Beatles albums in stereo. When all the instruments are put on one side and the vocals are all on another side, it's kind of, I would say those don't really have as much depth as maybe a White Album stereo mix or an Abbey Road stereo mix, where you can definitely kind of but you can almost hear behind the instruments, behind the vocals. You can hear the space that they're in. It creates a nice soundscape is what I call it, the stereo image. So I really like that on the White Album, and I miss it in the mono mix. Now, I need to say right off the bat, the mono mix for the White Album is obviously not bad at all. In fact, it rocks, and it's a very, very cool mix to have, and I recommend it for anyone who is a fan of the White Album. I think you should own the mono mix and the stereo mix. But when it comes to picking one over the other, I definitely would choose stereo. And there's also some big differences going on with the stereo mix and the mono mix for certain songs. And the biggest, the most noticeable thing are some of the sound effects are in different spots, or there are more of them based off the stereo mix or the mono mix. And what I mean by sound effects, like the bird chirping in Blackbird, the pigs grunting in the song Piggies, stuff like that is different. But some of the more noticeable things that I was initially talking about are songs like Don't Pass Me By. So on the mono mix, Don't Pass Me By is played at a much faster speed. It's in a different key. Ringo sounds like he's got helium in his voice. I don't really like it all that much, the mono mix for Don't Pass Me By. The stereo mix is a lot more natural, is what I would say, and definitely it is the preferable way to listen to Don't Pass Me By, for me at least. So right there, that's a win for the stereo mix. The other thing is the song Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter, famously, of course, the Beatles are just going absolutely wild. On the stereo mix, they're at the end, they're rocking out, it fades out, and then it comes back, it fades back in, and they're really rocking out, and then Ringo yells that famous phrase, "I've got blisters on my fingers." On the mono mix, that doesn't even happen. The song fades out and it never comes back. So that's a big, big miss, because in my opinion, there are some iconic moments on the White Album, obviously, and the I've Got Blisters on My Fingers, to me, is maybe the most iconic moment from the White Album, but it's, if not the most iconic, it's definitely like in the top 5 moments of the White Album. So not having that is, to me, a big miss for the mono mix. So when I go to listen to the White Album, I definitely always go for the stereo mix. If I'm in the car, or if I'm listening on on this home stereo I have here, I go for this German stereo pressing, and I always love it. It always sounds so great to me. And if I'm in the mood for a different way to listen to the White Album, I will put on the mono mix. But I gotta admit, very rarely do I listen to the Beatles White Album, the mono mix. It's just not one I go to all that much. I will say there are some benefits to it. Some songs do rock a bit more. I will say songs like Birthday and the upbeat numbers, Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Monkey, those kind of songs. It does seem like having them in the mono mix, there is just a little bit more of a thump going on, which is really cool. So, as I said previously, I think you got to own both the stereo mix and the mono mix. I think those are both very important to have in your Beatles collection. But for me personally, I will go always with the Beatles White Album in stereo. I'd love to know in the comments below your preferred way to listen to the White Album, stereo or mono, and what your favorite pressing is of the stereo and of the mono. And so let me know in the comments below, and I'll be making some more of these videos, because it seems like a lot of people are enjoying this, hearing what I think of either the stereo or mono mix of certain Beatles albums, and and I'm enjoying making the videos. So more to come. I think I might do Revolver next, because obviously the box set just came out, and there is a new mono pressing that's in that box set that I've been listening to and enjoying a lot. So I can give you my take on what I prefer for Revolver, stereo or mono. But that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're all doing well, and take care, and bye for now.